Overall gambling rate among Singaporeans is on a downward trend, although illegal online gambling is on the rise. This is according to a latest survey by the National Council on Problem Gambling. Now, of the over 3,000 residents polled, 40% participated in gambling, the lowest rate in 18 years. Probability of problem gambling also remained stable at 1.1%. 3 in 10 participated in 4D, followed by Toto at 29%, and lastly, Singapore Sweep and social gambling at 8%. 69% of gamblers bet less than once a week, and for those who bet at least once a week, almost all of them bet on lotteries. Median gambling expense was 25 Singapore dollars monthly, up from $15 3 years ago. But the council says the absolute amount isn't large. What could be a concern, though, is a slight increase in illegal online gambling. That notched up 0.7 percentage point from the last survey in 2020 to reach 1% last year.
One of the things that the MHA as well as GRA is doing is to continue to control and mitigate. And some of the measures that they put in place, for example, would be to block online gambling websites, as well as blocking accounts and payments that are related to illegal online gambling.
And one centre that helps gamblers say hearing from ex-gamblers is one way to encourage those trying to quit. Blessed Grace Social Services say 50% of their original group have stayed on to spur others to turn their lives around. Apart from support groups, it also provides counselling and helps to negotiate repayment plans.
35-year-old Andrea So is a father of 2, with a third child on the way. But it's been an uphill climb for him to kick the gambling habit. He started gambling at 15, first with legal channels, before moving on to illegal online avenues 2 years later. In 15 years, he racked up over $500,000 in losses.
It really got me into this belief, I think false belief, that I was able to gamble for a living. Yeah. So again, I think probably there's an egoistic and pride aspect to it as well, right? Like we think we are really smart people. We think we are unique. Of course, the bets got bigger.
And it got to the point that Mr. So was shunned by his entire social circle. But it was here in the support group hosted by Blessed Grace Social Services that he found acceptance and hope. Ex-gambler William Lee says he can sleep peacefully at night now, but things were so different not so long ago. Faced with a mountain of debt, he had to flee Malaysia, leaving behind family and friends. At one point, he thought about ending it all. Again, thanks to this intervention, he's found a new purpose in life.
I felt when I giving my testimony to others, to the newcomers, I felt that I'm share what I have done. Then I give them a hope to let them to believe that they also can do it. They can also change their life.
The man who runs the organisation which helps gamblers is fully aware of the severity of the problem. Pastor Billy Lee says they tell newcomers it takes a lifetime for a full recovery, as relapses can happen at any time. But there's a plan.
We map it out for them that it will take at least 2 years for a start. This is the first milestone, that they can truly see that they are on the path to recovery. And then after that, the next milestone will be 5 years. Yeah, if they can keep gambling for 5 years, then they are on the safe path now.
Pastor Lee says support groups are important. Hence, the centre's motto is, you come to heal, but you stay to help.
We've heard the statistics, but what exactly does problem gambling entail, and who might be more susceptible to addiction? Dr. Melvin Tang, Senior Consultant at the National Addictions Management Service at the Institute of Mental Health, joins us now on Zoom to share more. Dr. Tang, welcome. For a start, tell us what defines as problem gambling and why do people get addicted?
Good evening. Thanks for having me on this show. So when we say that someone is addicted to gambling or is diagnosed with the gambling and addiction, what we really mean to say is that the individual is gambling to repeatedly to an extent that his gambling activities, his behavior has affected and resulted in significant consequence for him in various areas of his life. For example, that could be in terms of his academic, his employment. It could also cause a huge amount of financial impairments in him. It might also affect him, in terms of his relationship. I think your second question is about, why people are addicted to gambling. So, being addicted to gambling is quite similar to how someone is addicted to other alcohol or other drugs. The underlying thing is that when someone gambles and have a first win, this results in activation of the brain reward pathway, quite similar to when someone actually consume alcohol and consume drugs. So, the individual might actually, repeatedly seek out the particular gambling activity in order to enjoy that pleasurable experience again. And so this might reinforce, his gambling behavior.
Are there then some people who are more likely to become problem gamblers than others? And what are some signs to look out for?
So there are indeed some risk factors that might predispose some individuals towards gambling addiction. So we know that there's a tendency for males to develop gambling addiction much earlier as compared to females. Individuals with a family history of maybe an addictive disorder or even a family history of gambling disorder are more predisposed towards gambling addiction. And individuals with other mental health conditions, for example, if they have a depression, anxiety, or even psychosis, they might also be more predisposed towards gambling disorder. There are also individuals with other personality traits. For example, they have a more impulsive nature, or who are experiencing high levels of stress, might also be more predisposed towards gambling.
I mean, if we look at the numbers, Dr. Tang, problem gambling rates remain low and stable at 1.1%. How much impact does problem gambling have on individuals and the broader society?
So I think, when someone is very addicted to gambling, it not only has an impact for himself or herself, but it has an immediate impact for the family members as well. Because some of the common signs and symptoms of gambling addiction is that, it might result in, financial impact for the individual. He or she could also, repeatedly lie to his family members about in order to conceal his gambling activity. He might also, rely on his family members to bail him out of, his because of the financial issues that he might be facing. And definitely has an impact on his relationship. And because of the extent that they are always so preoccupied in terms of his gambling activity, they might then in terms neglect, their work. They might not be able to perform so well at work as well. If they are studying, this might lead to also academic issues, academic for some other individuals, because of their prolonged time that they spend gambling, they might also develop other medical issues. We also know that gambling disorder might give rise to other mental health conditions. So we have seen individuals with a gambling disorder who in turn develop, maybe a depressive disorder because they are very troubled by the consequence of their gambling behavior. Some of them might also be at risk for of suicide because of they are so troubled by the stressor, the financial stressor.
A concern from this survey, Dr. Tang, is the slight increase in illegal online gambling. How prevalent or severe is it among the cases that you've seen? And can you share some examples of what they're addicted to here?
So from my clinical experience, it's true that we have seen, individuals coming in because they are struggling with online gambling. I think the severity of cases vary from mild to moderate to severe, depending on the extent of their involvement in online gambling. I think when people gamble online, the types of activities or the gambling activities that they perform online is not quite different from that in the conventional gambling types. They can play some of the casino games online as well. I do know of patients who also gamble on sports events online as well.
Let's talk about recovery then. We heard from the previous story that it takes a lifetime for full recovery, and relapses can happen at any time. How does counseling or therapy help problem gamblers?
So I think counseling and therapy, it's a core intervention approach to help, individuals who are struggling with gambling. Therapy comes, typically in therapy, we adopt different approaches. I think one of the first things that we need to do in therapy really is to use an approach known as motivation and interviewing. And we say that this is important because I think when individuals who are struggling with gambling addiction come to see us, they might be at various stages of motivation to change, and working on that motivation to effect a change is essential. I think the counselor, in the course of therapy, would also need to change some of the cognitive distortions that the individual might have about gambling, because sometimes individuals are likely to have cognitive distortion that cause them to repeatedly think that if I gamble more, I might win, I might have a bigger win. So we have to actually use some form of cognitive behavior therapy to actually change that as well. I think therapy is so important to help them to heal all those relationships that are affected. And I think the therapist also is important in order to help the individual identify some of the triggers that lead them to gamble in the first place, and work on the triggers in order to prevent them from relapsing or going back to their gambling behaviors.
All right, Dr. Tang, appreciate your time and thoughts. Thank you very much. That was Melvin Tang, Senior Consultant at the National Addictions Management Service at the Institute of Mental Health.